This is a presentation about heat illnesses, heat stroke, heat exhaustion, things like that. And a lot of these slides are borrowed from other sources. So heat illnesses should be thought of as on a spectrum. They should be thought of as not black and white, but kind of gray with a little bleed over. So they're not hard and fast definitions, and it's honestly not super well understood. We're still figuring things out. We're still learning. But now heat cramps are not really thought to predispose to further heat injury. So they're thought to be more like electrolyte based or fatigue of the muscle. So maybe a little salty snack or, Ceresport or a drip drop packet or some sort of electrolyte mix might help with this. Or honestly, just rest and stopping activity. Heat exhaustion, dizziness, feeling exhausted, obviously, right? Feeling hot, maybe a little lightheaded, maybe a little nauseous, but not altered. You still know where you are, you still know who you are, you still know what you're doing, you still know why you're there, things like that. You can count. When you can't do those things, that's heat stroke. So you're to the point where you're passed out, or you're confused, or you're maybe even combative. We've had people that start swinging. They're just not in their right mind. It's all those things of heat exhaustion, but the stroke is worse. That's what we just said. Heat injury, though, is when any of these things happen, but your body's affected to the point where your labs are elevated. So, like, we get concerned about this because this is where people die, like their liver fails or their kidneys fail or whatever. Something is affected. So your liver enzymes can be elevated. You can have lots of different things going on, and organ damage. So rhabdo can happen with heat. It can be associated with heat. It's not exclusive to heat. It can also be from just working out or pushing too hard. But it's when you feel sore all over. Typically, you're not urinating, or if you are urinating, it's dark brown, foamy, like tea colored. And so that can kill people too because their kidneys are clogged up and shutting down. So renal failure. So that guy needs to be in the hospital, or potentially needs to go to the hospital anyway. Water intoxication can be deadly as well. 2 people have died in the last several years here for benefiting from that. Drinking too much water. Drinking water. Hey, prevent heat injury. So drink more water, and you drive your salt down. And so when we're doing hot exercise type stuff and prolonged, especially, I'm telling guys, eat that salt packet on your food, your entree and your MRE, salt your food on the hot A's, things like that. You got to get some salt, do some electrolyte drinks, things like that. So conduction, convection, radiation, evaporation. That's the way we transfer heat. So evaporation, humidity, right, or sweating, we know that. Conduction, putting an ice pack on your neck to lose heat, or maybe touching a stove is how you gain heat, right? So that's how we transfer heat. In convection is the wind as it kind of blows off your skin. That allows the heat to escape. So obviously, if you're wearing the full uniform, can't get a lot of air movement. Radiation from the sun, right? So hot sun out there radiates heat, or off the pavement. That's one way. So doing a road march at night might be helpful. So some sources say over 75% humidity, that sweating becomes ineffective. I would say it becomes much less effective. And so you need to be looking at downgrading tops or doing other heat mitigation things when the humidity is high. So it's really about heat load. That's what we're trying to preach. This is about heat load more than it is about drinking water. And so you produce too much heat, or you're in the heat, producing heat from muscles, and you're not dumping it enough. And so that becomes too much, and that's how you get a heat injury. I mean, maybe if you put the fittest individual with the most acclimation in a hot enough environment for long enough, you're probably going to make him have a heat stroke eventually. So, it is about some of these risk factors. Acclimatization or being acclimated is important. 2 weeks is what it usually takes. Certain medications, maybe. Dehydration, maybe. Sunburns, yes, because you can't lose heat as well. And then, when we're talking about being overweight, there's minor illness. We've seen a huge influx of people when they get colds or fevers, especially, that they're more predisposed to heat injury. And we actually, basic trainees typically get a profile for 7 days to keep them from doing a road march or PT test when they're sick like this because of the fear for heat injury. So, here's the model of what we used to think, and some people still think, is that if you sweat too much, you don't drink enough fluids, and you have less essentially fluid or blood supply to your body will redirect it towards its core, towards the volume will all go, if it's low, it'll go towards the heart and the brain, and it won't go to the extremities, and so you won't be able to sweat out that heat or get the convection from the wind off from your skin. You won't be able to release that heat because all your blood is sequestered to the middle. So drink water is the idea, or whatever. But we think that might be part of it, but we think a lot of it also has to do with just heat accumulation and amount of heat dumping. Because only 17% of those who were admitted to the hospital with a heat stroke also had a co-diagnosis of dehydration from this one study. So this slide, 104 used to be our mark for heat exhaustion or heat stroke. So now we think more about, just the practical side of it, if they're altered or not. Some people can handle them higher than others. Some people are running around out, in the hot right now, and they're 104 and there's no problem. Rapid cooling is the way to fix it, and that's what you have to do. Don't worry about, the speed in which, you do want to cool them rapidly. I think some people were afraid of that in the past. So ice sheets is one way to do it. It's a picture on the left, or using an ice water immersion. So that's rapid cooling, and that's not had problems. We haven't seen any issues with that. In fact, it's what's so the extent that you're hot, for the duration and magnitude of how hot you are, is probably very highly correlated to your chance of survival. So if you stay really hot for really long, you're going to die. So getting it down, we've had people 107, 108 who get dunked in these things, and they go to the ER, and then they're fine. They get sent home that day. So, heat exhaustion, again, ill-defined. We're starting to think it's a spectrum, but, vague symptoms, not feeling good, exhausted from the heat, but not going to have any kind of mental status changes. Ice sheets, there's a TV med to look at this, I believe, to see how to do it, and axilla around the head and between the legs. We put one over it too, but you're just trying to actively cool them, and then you got to switch them out, or they're going to get hotter. So that's what we're talking about, reapply them. You do this while further help's on the way. You're trying to get them to the hospital if you're worried about this. If they're shivering, you can stop. If you don't have a rectal probe, we have a protocol for that if you don't have one. If you do have one, shivering, maybe stop, or 101, stop, but you need to continue to reassess your patient. So this slide is really just to talk about how, we make it safer for heat injuries, but then we dump so much water in people that we get hyponatremia, and people die from that too. So there's this kind of up and down, yin and yang for both of them, and if you can get confused because the symptoms can be similar. So, and that's what this slide's about, is showing temperature might be high or it might not be high with hyponatremia. And so, if you're getting confused or mental status changes, maybe follow the algorithm. Maybe it's not a good time to just give them water. So that's difficult. It's hard to tease out. And so by the time you get to clear vomit, you're in a bad spot. So I like to give people a guideline. I think it's easy to say one Camelback every 3 hours, or one canteen an hour is the max rate for which you should drink. Should be slowly over the day, not all at one time. If you drink a ton of water, you can't hold on to all that water if you drink it all at one time. So, salting foods, like we talked about, important as well. There's one study that the Rangers did, and it was looking at prevention. This is prevention only, where they put their arms up to their elbows and put them in for 3 to 5 minutes, and they saw 0.5 degree reduction in core temp. So it can help over time to prevent, but that's a long time to have somebody, maybe 10 minutes to get a whole degree, Guys love it though. They feel like it helps, makes them feel better, makes them cooler. Maybe it helps. We do it, but I don't think guys leave their arms in very long enough to really see a difference. To be honest with you, it mostly just makes them feel better. But Ranger School does this still too, from their study. So sleeping, getting good nutrition, and then avoiding certain risk factors is important. So eating before an event helps. Getting enough rest. We monitor in our courses the amount of sleep they get. And then if they have must-pass events, those are high risk because they'll push themselves instead of, all right, I'm not doing well, I'm going to slow down. So, these are some of the risk factors that I think you should be paying attention to. And this is a slide that I made that I really wanted to, because I wanted to emphasize to leaders when I presented this several years ago, was everybody makes hydration the big thing, but it's the smallest of things that leaders should do to mitigate heat injuries. So, proper hydration, 1 canteen an hour, okay, but heat mitigation. So, we know we can do some things to help mitigate the heat, like downgrading uniforms when the humidity is high, taking rest breaks, sitting in the shade, maybe dumping cold water over your head from time to time, or taking cold showers, or when we have several days of heat where we dump heat at night by getting an air conditioning. But the big thing is, like, especially prepping up to an event, you want to be telling people, go for walks outside at least in the heat when it's super crazy hot, or exercise a little bit in the heat for a few weeks before. Get used to it. Be outside for a couple hours at a time, and so your body will sweat sooner and cool off faster. It'll sweat less salt. It'll get adjusted to it, and so being in shape helps. We actually, a lot of our higher risk events now are later in our courses because we give them assessments earlier. And the people who don't pass the smaller things, they're higher risk. Well, a lot of our risk has gone way down by kicking out or dismissing, not kicking out, dismissing or failing people who aren't to snuff with their physical fitness. Um, so the more physically fit, the better you are at this. So, yeah, it's important, I think, to remember that this is dangerous, that this kills a few people, that people tend to not do a good assessment. They tend to kind of, whatever, you'll be fine or whatever, or think that giving water will help necessarily, but it's got to be rapid cooling. And so whether that's with ice sheets or a dunk tank, or just even our EMS here does, they do ice. They use like bicycle sports bottles, like little water bottles, and ice water, and they just squirt it over the bodies once they take downgrade clothes and squirt over them to cool them down. It's ice water lavage. So something to actively cool. You got to do it, and you got to do it, hurriedly, or you might have a problem. And so take it seriously and be prepared for the problem. Don't just react when you are caught with something you didn't expect or should have prepared for.